What if I told you the world doesn't see you as you really are? It sees you through its own limited lens. You could be a gem, a treasure. But to some, you'll never be worth more than a dozen oranges. And the worst part? Most people believe them. They let others decide their worth, their identity, their destiny, even their dreams. But one man asked Gautama Buddha a bold question. Lord, what is the true worth of a human life? And instead of giving a direct answer, Buddha gave him a stone. A strange, shining stone. A challenge that would change everything he believed about life, value, and himself. What followed was a journey through confusion, rejection, awe, and finally, revelation. And by the end of this story, you won't just know the answer to that man's question, you might just discover something about your own life too. He had searched everywhere, within books, within people, within himself. But still, the answer escaped him. So one day, tired and burdened by questions that never let him rest, a man walked up to Gautama Buddha and asked, "Oh Lord, please, tell me, what is the worth of a human life?" But instead of answering with words, Buddha reached into a small satchel beside him and pulled out a stone, but not just any stone. It shimmered strangely in the sunlight, with colors that danced like fire trapped in crystal. It felt important, alive even. And then, calmly, Buddha said, "Take this stone, go into the market, show it to people. Ask them what they're willing to give for it. But no matter what happens, do not sell it." The man was puzzled. This wasn't what he expected. Was this some kind of test? A riddle? A distraction? But when you stand before a man like Buddha, you don't argue, you listen. So with the stone cradled in his palm and confusion heavy in his heart, he stepped out into the world, not knowing that this simple walk through the market would soon open his eyes forever. The sun was just beginning to climb over the rooftops as the man entered the bustling market. Vendors were shouting, children were laughing, and the air smelled of dust, spice, and freshly cut fruit. Still unsure what he was searching for, he walked up to the first person he saw, an orange seller with stained hands and a kind but tired face. Holding out the shining stone carefully, he asked, "Sir, what would you offer me for this?" The orange seller took the stone, turned it over in his fingers, squinted at it under the sunlight, and smiled. It's shiny, but it's just a rock, isn't it?" he said with a shrug. "I'll give you a dozen oranges for it." The man blinked. Just 12 oranges, for something that shimmered like a flame. He gently took the stone back without saying a word. He hadn't come to sell it after all. But something about that offer stuck in his mind. A dozen oranges. That was the value of the stone, at least to someone who only understood fruit. And in that moment, a quiet truth whispered through his thoughts. People can only measure your worth through the lens of their own understanding. But this was only the beginning. He had more places to visit, and he hoped more answers to find. With the stone still warm in his hand, the man walked deeper into the market. The crowd grew louder, the colors brighter, but inside his thoughts were quiet, restless. Soon, he stopped at a vegetable stall, where an old vendor was carefully arranging sacks of potatoes. The man stepped forward and asked politely, "Would you like to buy this stone? What would you offer me for it?" The vendor looked up, wiped his hands on his apron, then took the stone and examined it. His brow furrowed, but not with awe, just curiosity. After a few seconds, he grunted and said, "Not sure what this is, but it looks shiny enough. I'll trade you a full sack of potatoes." Another offer, another answer, another version of truth. The man nodded, thanked him, and walked away, still confused, but now a little wiser. First, a dozen oranges. Now, a sack of potatoes. To them, that was the worth of this stone. Not because that's what it was, but because that's all they could see. And it hit him. Even the most beautiful things in life mean nothing. To someone who can't recognize beauty, he looked down at the stone in his palm, its glow untouched by ignorance. Something inside him whispered, "Keep going." By now the man had walked for hours, his feet sore, his mind heavy. But the stone in his hand, it still glowed, unchanged, unbothered, unimpressed by the offer so far. He looked up and noticed a small, neatly kept shop tucked away in a quieter part of the market. Its wooden sign read, Hararam Jewels Goldsmith since 1892. This time, the man felt something shift. He stepped inside, the warm scent of molten metal and polish filling the air. Behind the counter stood a goldsmith, sharp-eyed and silver-haired, delicately setting a gemstone into a ring. The man gently placed the stone on the counter and said, "What would you offer me for this?" The goldsmith picked it up. He didn't speak, didn't blink. His fingers trembled slightly as he turned it under the light. Then, in a breathless voice, he said, "Where did you find this?" The man stayed silent. The goldsmith leaned forward, eyes wide with awe. "I'll give you 1 lakh gold coins for it right now." The man was stunned. This was not a joke. Not an insult wrapped in kindness. It was a genuine offer, one that could change his life. But he remembered Buddha's words, "Do not sell it." So he smiled and said, "I'm sorry, but it's not for sale." The goldsmith hesitated, then spoke again. "Fine, 5 lakh coins. That's my final offer. 5 lakh. For the same stone that others had valued at just a sack of potatoes?" The man bowed politely, took the stone back, and walked out. And as he stepped into the sunlight again, a strange clarity began to rise within him. It's not the stone that's changed, he thought. It's the eyes looking at it. By now, the man was no longer confused. He was curious. He had seen how wildly different people valued the same stone, each based on nothing more than their own knowledge, or lack of it. But there was one place left, the grandest shop in the entire city, a place people only whispered about. The Diamond Merchant's Hall. He walked up the white marble steps, stone still safely in his hand, and entered a room that sparkled with wealth. Behind a vast glass counter stood a merchant draped in silk robes, with eyes trained to detect the rarest of gems. The man stepped forward, placed the glowing stone on the velvet counter, and asked once again, "What would you offer me for this?" For a moment there was silence. Then the diamond merchant leaned in, and as his eyes landed on the stone, he froze. His face changed. All arrogance vanished. He didn't speak. Instead, he gently reached for a deep crimson velvet cloth, laid it on the counter with reverence, and slowly placed the stone at its center. Then without hesitation, he bowed, a deep, respectful bow, not to the man, but to the stone. When he arose, his voice was soft, almost shaken. "Where did you find this?" he asked. This is not just a stone. This is a divine ruby, a treasure, a masterpiece lost to time." The merchant's eyes filled with wonder as he whispered, "Even if I sold every gem, every coin, and every inch of this empire, I still could not afford this. This is priceless." And at that moment, the man finally understood what Buddha had been trying to show him. The same stone was worthless to some, valuable to others, and invaluable to only a few. And it had never been about the stone at all. It had always been about the eyes that looked at it. With the stone still resting quietly in his palm, the man began his journey back to the forest, back to the silence, back to the one who had given him no answers but all the tools to find one. As he approached Gautama Buddha, his steps felt lighter, his questions quieter. He bowed low and placed the stone before him. Then, slowly, he began to speak. "Lord, I did as you said. I went to the market. To the orange seller, the vegetable vendor, the goldsmith, and finally, the diamond merchant." He took a deep breath. Each one offered something different. Some saw it as cheap, others valuable, and one said it was beyond all price. He looked up, eyes searching Buddha's calm face. "So tell me now, what is the worth of a human life?" Buddha smiled gently, as if the answer had always been shining in the man's hand. "You've already seen it, my friend," he said softly. The orange seller could only offer what he had 12 oranges. The vegetable vendor, a sack of potatoes. The goldsmith saw more, and the diamond merchant saw truth. Then he paused, and his next words struck deeper than anything before. This stone never changed. But the value others placed on it? That changed with their knowledge, their vision, their capacity to understand. The man listened silently, as if hearing not just words, but the echo of something he had always known, but never realized. And so it is with you, Buddha continued. You are a gem, but people will see you only through the lens of their own understanding. Their limits are not your truth. Buddha's words hung in the air, gentle, yet powerful enough to shake the foundation of the man's thinking. You see, Buddha continued, the value of your life doesn't lie in the hands of others. It lies in where you choose to place yourself. The man's eyes widened as realization unfolded like dawn. If you allow yourself to be surrounded by those who cannot see your worth, they will offer you nothing more than a few oranges or a sack of potatoes. Not because you are worthless, but because that is all they know how to give. Buddha's gaze was calm, steady, but every word pierced like lightning. The world will try to tell you who you are with its assumptions, its judgments, its shallow measures. And most people, they listen, they shrink, they settle. They begin to believe that they are only worth what others are willing to pay. The man felt a lump in his throat, because somewhere deep down, he had done the same. Then Buddha said something that felt like it was meant for every soul still searching, but those who know their true value. They refuse to be defined by someone else's limits. They walk away from places that cannot see their shine. They never beg to be understood because they understand themselves. The man lowered his head, not out of shame, but from the weight of wisdom that had finally reached his heart. The man left with no gold, no riches, and yet he had never felt wealthier in his entire life, because for the first time he wasn't searching for his worth. He knew it, and that was priceless. So now the question isn't what are you worth? It's where are you placing yourself? Are you surrounded by people who see your shine, or by those who only notice the dust on your surface? Because the world will try to price you, weigh you, categorize you based on its own limits. But the moment you realize that your value isn't up for auction, you become free. Free from opinions, free from comparison, free from seeking approval. That was never meant to define you. Just like that stone, you were always rare. You were always radiant. You were always enough. You just needed someone to show you the mirror. Or maybe you needed this story to remind you, so the next time someone underestimates your worth, smile gently, walk away. Because only those who can truly see you deserve to hold space in your story.